Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Let's jump back here and take a look at what happened yesterday. If you guys recall, we did have some clues for a continued bounce to push higher based on the lows coming into the open. So we had some clues the market would try to continue to push higher. And that's kind of what we got. So the big bounce happened, remember, in the overnight session going into Monday morning there. You guys know in our pre-market I mentioned I got long here, and of course they brought it down about 4 or 5 points, so I got stopped out on that. But then that was just before the open. Again, the reason I took this trade was the pullback into the roadmap level with the 200 and some bullish divergence, and it did bounce. It just didn't really go more than about 2 points and then came back. Out of the open here, you can see we get the strong push. The first best opportunity on the chart, in my opinion, was the pullback into VWAP here. I believe when I was watching this, I was hoping we would get the pullback to the 200. Never happened. But good opportunity either to buy the roadmap level or VWAP. They're both about a point away from each other. And then you got the next pop for a good, let's say you bought the roadmap level, you got yourself greater than 10 points to the upside. Probably should have taken some profit right here in case we rolled over right off the level, kind of like what happened, right? I mean, we came right up into it here, held. You could have shorted actually 60.32 about 5 or 6 times in here and got yourself some great trades right back to the 200. And then we peeked through, tried to hold above, got a slightly higher high, and then look what happened. We hold the back end of 32 and get the pullback there. So some good long opportunities. Again, VWAP, all of these longs off of the 200 had bullish divergence as we tested into them. That one being probably the sexiest one. The first test, big bullish divergence, and then we get the pop up to the new high, again, pushing more than 10 points. So great opportunity there. And then here's a couple more tests. And then here's where I got short because I started to get some clear signs for a pullback. And then I jumped in on this setup here. So we started to fail. 3-minute had a big bearish divergence on that high, started to pull back. Now you did have a long opportunity, again, pulling into 60.32. This 60.32 level, again, if you shorted it, how many times did you get yourself a nice scalp to the downside? You know, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. Because remember, these pops are not more than 2 points. This is like a point, a couple ticks, a point and a half. So you could have shorted this whole thing so many times. And then you could have bought once we got above it, but we didn't get there. So as we came down, I saw the weakness from that morning high. I expected there to be at least a pullback into VWAP there. So on this second high, let's move my marker there. As it came up and made this second high right off the FMA, I noticed how extreme the RVI had pushed in comparison to that right there, right? So it's a little micro divergence, again, basically a 50% retracement of this little micro pullback. And then I saw that and I gave it a shot. Now I got filled right there at 33.5 and then got myself a nice little trade to the downside. And then I chilled out because everything started to kind of peter around in this little chop session. So I kind of walked away from it at that point in terms of trying to find a trade. So I had a stop out and then I had didn't get a full winner because guess what happened? This is such a textbook thing. I got short here, got my profit on a couple contracts, came all the way back up right to my entry. I mean, quite literally right to my entry. And then they brought it even lower where I would have gotten filled on the rest of my contract. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. Sometimes we get the defense right off the level, never comes back, and I could have actually gotten it. But that's how it's been. And I noticed in the last week here, we have had a little bit of a jump in volatility, and our levels hold nearly perfectly. You can see here even in this area, but there's a little bit more travel through them in many instances. I don't know if anyone else who's been watching this, at least the stuff we do, have noticed a little bit more of some more extreme breaks through our levels. Something I've noticed recently, but still holding to the tick in so many other instances, right? So it's still working out great. We get the pullback and then starts to hold down here below VWAP. So this actually, in my opinion, would have been a great trade to see if we would get the deeper pullback, right? Because now that we're breaking this major area of support, this is a major scaffolding level, we break down below it. As they come up back to the back end of VWAP, fast moving average, and the roadmap level, big, huge bearish divergence off that high, right? So this would have been a great opportunity. Again, you took on a tick of risk, looking for that push down to 60.11 for over 10 points. Did it get there? No, but you should have been able to get yourself a 5-point short from there. And then of course it came back and that began the next rally back up. And as you can see, holding the FMA, basically holding that roadmap level at 32 there, comes back out. And then we find resistance at the next roadmap level. Again, if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture here, how many times do we just come right into a major roadmap level, rotate right off of it on the bearish side and on the bullish side, right? So we come all the way up. The high of the morning is the next roadmap level. And this really would have been the best short. But again, I was looking right out of the open here for a good setup, or within a half hour of the open. This was a little later after we were chopping around here for a while and I walked away. But this would have been a great, because there was a bunch of bearish clues up here. How far did we travel through the level? Quite literally 8 ticks, 2 points. That was it. 2 points on the ES, my friends, is about as tight of a stop you can hold, right? And just held, and then you got yourself a 20, 30, 40 point pullback. Now, if you didn't get short from up here, you had a lot of good opportunities on the way down. Here again is, for whatever reason, and again, if you look at my trading stats, about 90 to 90, it depends on what period you're looking at on my trading stats, but typically it's right around 90 to 95% of all my profitable trades are shorts. It's the way my brain works. When I see us coming up into a major resistance, I'm really good at capturing the meltdown from there. Whatever, I don't know why. It's just the way my brain works. The same setups happen on the inverse, on the bullish side, but for whatever reason, I like the fade. So this was another great example where we get the big resistance off the level. We start to get the pullback. This is basically the 50% retrace of the pullback. They hold, and they get the sell-off from there, right? So on the way down here, again, I'm not saying you would have actually shorted right here, but you did have a big bearish divergence on that final high, which is basically, let's take a look and see just for fun, just above a 61.8. I'm willing to bet here, right to the 61.8, right? So we come all the way down, test that 61.8. There's the big bearish divergence, and then we get the sell-off from there. So again, you could have nailed the high, got short from here, and take on, again, 2 points of risk to get a 20, 30, 40 point, 50 point sell-off. So great opportunity. And then on the way down here, if you missed out on nailing the actual high, you had all these aggressive opportunities off the fast moving average the whole way down. There's the back end of the VWAP again, bearish divergences. So all of this opportunity to make money on the way down, they bounce right around the roadmap level, not surprising. And then they reject to the tick off the back end of the 200 there with bearish divergence. So you had great opportunities to short this whole thing. Great opportunity to buy if you wanted. Big bullish divergence there, just a point below the level, or a point and a half below the level. And then you can jump in on that bearish train right off the back end of the 200. This is like textbook trade setups. Now, is it going to work every time when we get through the 200 and come back? In this case, it went right through, right? But when it works, we know it works typically just like that. Very limited risk, and if it holds, it's going to hold for the rotation. So great opportunity there as well. That brought us down for another test of the 200 for the same setup, bearish divergence, testing the back end of the 200 in a pretty heavy market. And you got yourself, again, maybe a point of risk, and you should have at least been able to get your 5-pointer off, and it just missed the 10-point fade from there, right? And then it came back. So again, so many perfect opportunities here, holding the FMA the whole way down. Then we get into the chop session, and this was obviously a pretty messy situation in the market here, so not going to really talk about this, but the main thing that you should notice here is every time the bulls tried to come back out, they got rejections off VWAP. right? So a lot of trouble recovering above VWAP. Then they kind of get through it, reject nearly to the tick off the roadmap level, and hold above it there. So kind of looked like maybe we're going to get a recovery, but that was a very bearish setup right off the back end of the roadmap level. And if you look at the bigger picture here, what do we have going on? Stair step off the back end of the roadmap levels to the tick almost. And in many cases, we do see it hold to the tick. Then they come down to get below the next roadmap level, come right to the back end of it and hold it again. Again, with very limited risk. We're talking about a push up to 26, 3 points through it, and only a couple ticks through the VWAP, right? And then we hold from the next roadmap level to the upside for the bounce, right? So it's just kind of back and forth, just zooming out and looking at the whole picture here. Well, why isn't it zooming out? The frig. I guess that's as zoomed out as it can get. Just kind of literally just traveling back and forth between the roadmap levels, right? So this is kind of like the perfect skeleton or scaffolding in the market to trade around. So it gets messy over here. We pop through VWAP, try to hold above the next roadmap level. There's another tag of the 200, bullish divergence. You get yourself a 5-point bounce off of it, 7 points. And again, it gets messy in here, but the major rotations, 200 sells off. Then we hold the 200 and the VWAP to the back end. Then we come up, another fade opportunity off the roadmap level again. Hold the VWAP, and then we pop out, come up to the high of the day. And the high of the day, again, was one of my, not my official levels, but it was one of those levels that almost bifurcated two major levels here, right? Not quite as probably a 61.8 if you were to measure that, but came right up to it, and that was the high of the day. So that's it. At the end of the day, you can also see you had one final long opportunity as we were breaking out to new highs, and that was this bullish divergence off the roadmap level as it pulled back into it here for the bounce up. Coming into the overnight session, looking a little bit choppy here all night. We'll jump back here and just kind of look. Nothing really to talk about here. It was very messy. You had a really nice bearish divergence off the previous daily close over here. You had a really nice short opportunity with bearish divergence off VWAP right out of the Globex open there. But nothing else that was super sexy except for kind of the best thing. Right to the roadmap level, the low of the overnight session to the tick, our roadmap level at 32. And there's 32 again, my friends. How relevant has this 32 level been, this week here? Like rejecting off of it a million times, rejecting off of it, getting above it, holding above it, rejecting off of it. And then here we come into last night. They come right to it, to the tick, and bounce for the biggest push of the night, right? So great long opportunity there. And then that brought us all the way up, pull back into VWAP for the bounce. Brought us all the way up to the next roadmap level here, where a couple hours ago we pulled back, right? So you just kind of blows my mind. And then I actually hesitated on this morning. I was getting ready. I saw us pulling back into here. There was 3 minute, 10 minute, and tick divergence as we were getting close. And of course, I didn't put anything on. I was just watching stuff, and that was the low that brought us up 20 points ever since then. So I would have had a beautiful start to Tuesday if I took that. But again, that's the nature of trading. You're not gonna do everything perfectly every day, and that's the mental struggle. So that's it, guys. Great opportunity for a long here, about 7:30 Eastern, 7:20 Eastern, and now we're just chopping around in a tight range. So let's go ahead and jump on up and take a look at the higher time frames. Yeah, Kevin, I mean, it's kind of scary when you look at the stats and it's like 90 something percent are all shorts, all of my profitable trades. And it's the same setup on the long side. It's just my brain, whatever, works on the short side better. It likes the fades. Let me get this other recording.